For those who were here this morning, Rick Cotton started the day with customer experience, so I want to connect the dots for all of us. He talked about putting the customer first in the future design work, and the Petrova Experience, and yours truly here, is the person that helps you make this happen. It's one thing to say that, it's a completely different thing to embed that discipline and decision-making focus on the projects. So this is where Liliana and the Petrova Experience comes. Not all engineers and architects love us, but you know what? We question things, and that's our job, because historically the customer was not always in the center of some important infrastructure decisions. So for those who want to win awards and do amazing stuff, just like Amtrak and Sarah, please talk to us. And full disclosure, I know Sarah already because we are working together on Penn Station, but I'm not going to pretend I know a lot about her. So Sarah, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Liliana, and thanks to Ken and the InfraDay team for inviting us to be here today. My name's Sarah Appleton. I'm an assistant director at Amtrak. I focus on advancing our Gateway program, and specifically, I lead our capital program for Penn Station and coordination of our Penn plans with the ongoing Hudson Tunnel project. I'm a native New Yorker, and I've tried to focus my career on working on transformative economic development, transportation, and infrastructure projects. So before Amtrak, I worked at McKinsey, where I advised state governments and many of the largest Northeastern public transit agencies on different strategic, financial, and operational issues. And before that, also worked at the New York City Economic Development Corporation. So excited to be here with this group today.
Yeah, what I love about your background is that you have the trifecta. You've done government, you've done private, so you see things differently. We heard already today that there's a lot going on, but including a lot of funding that came from the federal government. So as I breathe and live customer experience, I wanted to ask you, what are you guys doing with all this money? What is there that can be shared today that's exciting infrastructure, interior design, and fleet, anything that you can share with us today? Thank you.
Yeah, I know folks have heard from some of my colleagues this morning, so I'll keep it a little bit brief as an intro, but, it's an incredibly exciting time. Just to hit a couple of the highlights again, thanks to the bipartisan infrastructure law, this year Amtrak was able to make its single largest capital investment, $4.5 billion in a single year, and we've secured more than $30 billion to continue to modernize our network. So in terms of big picture, the things we're doing, as many of you are aware, we're building new bridges, tunnels, we're rolling out new trains all across the country, and we're planning, for new routes and service expansions to really create kind of a modern era of rail in the U.S. It's also very exciting that this year we hit an all-time ridership record. We welcomed nearly 33 million customers on board this year, and that's a 15% increase over last year. We've also had a record number of first-time riders since the pandemic, which is extremely exciting and an incredible opportunity if we can deliver an amazing customer experience for those first-time riders. So that is a big part of our strategy as an organization, particularly since we have an organizational goal to double our record ridership and reach 66 million riders by 2040. And so we're really focused on thinking about, every step of the customer journey and really trying to delight customers at every step of the way. So from the point at which, they're booking a trip to the point at which they reach their final destination. So on the booking front, we're looking at things like continuing to improve, our digital tools, our app, our website, and also just giving customers more options. We have a new feature that, for instance, lets customers pay with a mix of points and cash, and also, of course, rolling out actual new routes like our Borealis service between Chicago and St. Paul this year. At our stations, we're making major investments to modernize and revitalize our hubs. Here in New York, we opened Moynihan Train Hall in 2021. As I mentioned, and we'll talk about more, we have an ambitious program for Penn. We have a renovation project underway at 30th Street Station in Philadelphia, and similar comprehensive renovation programs planned in Washington, Baltimore, and Chicago. And all of those, are really putting the customer first. We're really focused on improving the quality of our concourses, our customer spaces like waiting rooms, lounges, food and beverage offerings, retail. And then also all across our network, we've been making, significant investments in improving accessibility at stations all across the country. And then, I do want to highlight we have amazing fleet programs that are getting underway that we can talk about more. New Acellas, our next-gen Acellas that are starting this spring, shortly followed by our new Aero train sets. And we're also starting a refresh of our long-distance fleet. So, there's plenty going on. And again, it's really that focus on making sure that when folks need to travel, they're persuaded that we provide the best travel experience. And so they're going to choose to take Amtrak.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because you're talking about growth and in customer experience, not just public, but in general, any industry. One of the biggest use cases to invest in customer experience is actually when you grow your business and when you need to figure out higher throughput with the same quality, or there's more at risk because now if there is a disruption, more people will be disrupted. So there is a higher potential public risk of bad press. So as you said, you listed a lot. But, let's talk about Penn Station because that's where we cross paths. Can you tell us a little bit about what have you been doing to improve the customer experience at Penn and what's in the books for the future?
Yeah, we're in the midst of an exciting transformation of Penn, and hopefully many of you have traveled through and seen some of the recent changes we made. I've already mentioned the opening of Moynihan in 2021. And with that, we were really focused on kind of elevating the, kind of customer experience within the physical space. So a simplified layout, improved wayfinding. If you go into the concourse there, you can see all of the boarding locations. All of the services and amenities are clustered around the main concourse for customers. And there's delightful aesthetics like the skylight and dynamic amenities like the food court and our flagship Amtrak Metropolitan Lounge. On the Penn side of the complex, the original structure underneath Madison Square Garden and the 2 Penn building, we last year renovated our entrance at 32nd Street and 7th Avenue. We were able to add an elevator there for the first time, making that a fully accessible entrance. Yeah, very important. We also supported the MTA on expanding the 33rd Street concourse, the main LIRR waiting area, and adding that new entrance on 33rd Street. We've been, adding new retail offerings, refreshing our waiting rooms. We introduced our public art program, Art at Amtrak, in the station. But there's still more to do. And so, looking to the future, we want to keep modernizing the parts of the station that we haven't yet been able to upgrade. And we want to be thinking about how do we make sure that the future station can accommodate an increase in service. Frankly, the increases in service all of the rail agencies at the station want to be able to deliver for the future. So in partnership with the MTA and New Jersey Transit, we have 2 major projects that we're advancing. The first we call the Reconstruction Project. I'm sure many folks in this room have heard about both of these. But the reconstruction is really focused on improving safety, accessibility, and the customer experience in the existing station, which we know has significant challenges. So when we think about a reconstruction, really putting the customer first, dealing with a confusing layout and some of the pain points that we know result from that. If you think about the station today, there are 2 underground levels. As a customer, you have to figure out what's on what level, where do I need to be for where I'm trying to go, and now how do I get there even once I figure that out. So, we're trying to move towards a Moynihan model where we're transitioning to what we call a single level customer experience. So centralizing all of the boarding, all the services, all the amenities on a single level to totally, remove that pain point for customers. Co-locating railroad functions. So, Amtrak's not on one side, New Jersey Transit's on the other side, and really creating a simple layout that mirrors the street grid, which we think will be intuitive for people and helps them navigate in and out of the building in the most efficient manner. Platform accessibility is also a key focus as we think about the redesign, as well as renovating our entrances, particularly on 8th Avenue, where right now we have no elevators. Those aren't accessible entrances. And, there's been a huge increase in pedestrian activity to the west because of the build out of Hudson Yards and all of the development along the west side. So we essentially have almost equal numbers of pedestrians trying to access the station from the west and the east, and we need to make investment in the west side of the station that, reflects that activity. So that's the reconstruction. And then, of course, for a great customer experience, you have to be able to deliver great service reliably. And that's what our complementary capacity expansion project is all about. This project is focused on increasing the train capacity of the station so that we can accommodate a doubling or more of passenger service between New Jersey and New York. So kind of a key part consistent with our overall gateway program for the region. And there's great momentum for that program. Portal North Bridge in New Jersey is 75% complete. The Hudson Tunnel project is in construction on both the New York, New Jersey sides and in the river. And so we need to make sure that the station, which is really constrained and at capacity right now, actually has the ability to accept more trains in the future and, make that comparable public investment. So we're excited. Our agency has just received about $150 million in federal grants just announced in November to complete preliminary engineering and environmental review work on both of these projects. We convened an advisory group of community stakeholders this fall to help give us early feedback on our plans. And so, we're very excited, and more is going to be coming, for public consumption, and we'll be going out and sharing more specific proposals in 2025.
Sounds like a great plan and execution here. Just to go back to what you talked about, customer experience and creating one level. One thing that we did as part of the project we worked with you on was to talk to passengers. And it was amazing to hear from them, just increasing that width of that hallway that corridor you talked about, how much perception it created that there is more air, more light, more freedom to move, so that people feel less stressed. So the stress release can come from design is what I'm trying to get at here. The way something is designed can create emotions, and that's what customer experience is. It's the business of emotions and creating perceptions. And it was beautiful to hear. It was like a good story to hear that when you invested, the customer actually received that emotion that you were planning for. So creating that one level Moynihan style on the Penn Station side, I think will have a much bigger effect and impact on all of us here who live in New York and go through Penn Station than we even think today. It's kind of like, it sounds like a one thing, but it's like actually a one very big thing, because when you open visibility, you create control. People can see where they're going and they feel less anxious about their destinations.
Absolutely. And, we've run some surveys since Moynihan opened and got a lot of really positive feedback from our customers. And to your point, they noticed and they cared, and it made a difference. And we even got one or two written comments that were, Moynihan is great, do that at Penn. So people really understood the difference, between the experiences, even just on two sides of the same complex. But I will interject a second, because one thing that I was excited about, so when the Petrova Experience team started to help our, the three rail agencies with a little bit of this customer research at Penn, it was interesting for me to think about the fact that your team has done a lot of work at airports. And I'd love for you to just talk for a second, because I keep wondering about it. How similar are these environments in your, from your perspective when it comes to customer experience? And are some of the solutions the same at airports and train stations?
Yeah, thank you for this question. Well, it's funny. I met someone today. I don't know if he's in the room, but he was a little skeptical, saying they're very different. It's really they have nothing to do with each other. And yes, there is one big difference between designing for airport or a train station, and it's security, right? When we are talking about train experience or train station experience, you see people from all walks of life. When you're in a concourse in an airport, you have that benefit that people have gone through security. There's like a selection process. So all the amenities that you would invest in would be used, so you hope, respectfully, and will have a higher life. But if you take that big difference away, there's actually a lot in common. Both of these spaces essentially connect passengers. In one case, it may be connection between two carriers from one airline to another. In the other one, maybe from a car to a train. But either way, people seek to connect, which means they're coming from somewhere, they're going from somewhere, and there's a moment of transition and anxiety, which is actually psychologically very important, because you can design for emotions, as we said. So if you know that, you can guide your design around this, removing this anxiety. Another commonality is bags. And I think people don't think about it, but if you go to a station like Penn Station on a weekend, it looks like an actual airport. There's so many people with bags, with big bags. There are all these school kids with their laundry loaded in the bags, that the luggage there. It's pretty comical and amazing. So it's funny because why I mentioned this is because train stations need to think like an airport. What are you going to do with all these bags? Where's the capacity? How are they moving? What does that mean about elevators and all that stuff? Another piece that I think is extremely important and defines the quality of the experience of a passenger is the importance of wayfinding and information sharing. We depend on this more than ever now, but more so our expectation that this is real time is undeniably there. Like, people expect you to tell them about where things are in real time. And if you cannot, they're not just disappointed. They just think you're very, very out of touch with life today. It's kind of a very grave disappointment, like almost like not rational. But these are just some of the connections. And in the case actually in Penn Station, you have the added complexity of multiple railroads sharing the space. Just how we have airports that are common use, what we call them, which is, different carriers being there and expressing their brand. Well, how can you all be there, right? That's a very interesting brand and design challenge. How do you honor that that identity of all these players in the same space? Like, I see we're short on time. We have a lot to talk to you about. We don't have that much time. But I think I gotta go and choose one topic that we go through in our list. And perhaps we're gonna talk about the app. How about that? I love your app. I get sick going in the opposite direction of the train movement. So the specific feature of the app that I personally love is that little triangle that tells me which way the train is going, because it makes me feel so much in power of deciding where I'm going to sit. But is there anything else in your app? And again, I recognize not everyone uses the app, but you all should use the Amtrak app because it's really cool. What else is coming there, and what can you tell us about the app?
Yeah, well, this is a pretty timely question because actually just this month, we're rolling out a bit of a new screen and kind of dashboard. So if you are now traveling within the next 24 hours, within this month, you will start to notice that your screen looks different. You're immediately going to see information that is relevant to your upcoming trip. And in particular, you're going to get real-time updates to this actual point Liliana was just making about kind of our expectation for information in this era. And so, in a previous, month, you may have had to actually go click on like our status page and put in your train information to double check the actual arrival time or departure time of your train. Now all that information is going to be immediately pushed to you. And you're also then just going to see the most relevant information and options for a person who is actively getting ready to travel or is in the middle of their trip. So we think that's going to be a great improvement and hopefully just reduce some friction for our customers. We've also continually improved how we actually show and offer seat changes. Also, to the point you were just mentioning, that feature's always been there, but we've brought it more front and center into our booking process to make sure that every customer realizes that they have the ability to select or change their seat on those classes where you do get an assigned seat on our trains. And, this isn't as app specific, but on the technology front, we keep trying to upgrade and keep with the times. And so we've been rolling out 5G Wi-Fi upgrades on our Acellas, on most of our Northeast regionals at this point, the auto train, and we're seeking partners to continue to iterate on the best way to improve connectivity and Wi-Fi service along the whole Northeast corridor. So, we're continually seeking partners for that. And our new fleets are just going to be amazing and have a lot of new customer comfort and convenience features as well. Dedicated charging outlets, USB ports. So, we're stepping up our game with these new fleets, and we're excited and think they'll really be even more comfortable for our customers.
Thank you so much. The two things we didn't mention that we're just going to give you a shout out is product design, the fleet design and the interiors. It's part of the customer experience, so we just didn't have time to cover. And of course, the human interaction and connection, and how do you train your people to be there at the right time at the right place, and to know technology enough so they can manipulate and actually fix problems for the customers in real time and not be like, I don't know what this is. So I just, as a nerd, I had to give you these two topics that are also part of the customer experience that we didn't get to cover, but we will be in the lobby if anyone wants to talk more about passenger experience. Thank you so much. See you soon.
Thanks, Leon. Thank you all.